Today I'm going to explain how I make homemade micarta. Some of the materials I need to do that: some fiberglass resin. This happens to be a Bondo brand. A measuring cup to pour the resin into. Right here I've got 10 ounces already poured out. A container to mix the resin. Some hardener. I use a shot glass. The hardener comes in a small tube. Some C-clamps. I use 4 of them when I'm making the micarta. Some nitrile gloves. I like the nitrile better than the latex. They're a little bit sturdier. The material that you're going to make the micarta from, today I'm going to be using a dark blue denim, and there is some neon yellow in there. It'll come out a little bit darker. Some wax paper and 2 pieces of 1x4. The 1x4 I'm using now are cut into 12-inch strips. The material is in 2-inch by 11-inch long strips. And the way you get started is pour the resin into the mixing cup. Now for the hardener, for the Bondo, it says to use 12 drops per ounce of hardener. And what I've found that in the heat, and it's about 90 degrees out right now, in the heat that it sets up too fast. I've got probably 5 minutes of work time, which is not enough if I use that amount. And what I've found is using half that amount, so instead of 120 drops, I'm using 60 drops today. Just pour it right in the resin and stir it up. I've got the material laid out. It's a little bit breezy today, so I'm going to set this other board here, and then I reverse the material so I can just grab it and it'll be set up the way I want it. And the way I do it is I just lay down a piece of material, one piece. I pour the resin out. I found it easier to do that. Some people like to brush it on. I pour it onto the material. Be liberal with how much you put on there. You want to soak it in real good. And then to get that in there, and then I just work it in with my fingers. Now you can see why you wear the gloves. It is messy. I wouldn't recommend doing this in your house because it will lead to disputes in your household. And then you just continue on, pouring the resin, working it in with your fingers. If you don't mix enough, or if it starts to set up, then the trick is to mix a second batch in the amount that you need very quickly. And you might find, or when you sand your handle material, you might find that you see a ridge, or you can tell where the separation is because one's set up quicker than the other. It just doesn't blend quite as well. So try and do it in one pour as you can. Work as quickly as you can. For the thickness of your handle material, all depends on the type of knife that you're going to make. For a small pocket knife, you can probably go very, very thin. Now this yellow is a linen. There's not much to it. It doesn't take much resin to soak it in. But for a fixed blade knife where you might want a little bit thicker handle, then you're going to use a little bit more material. And depending on how thick you like the handle is how much you're going to use and how thick the material is. The denim is relatively thick. I'll use heavy cotton canvas. That's very thick. But the yellow in here is very thin. I'm probably going to make about 20 layers. I think that's what I've got measured out of the denim, with 4 layers of denim and then 1 layer of the yellow linen. If I was going to go all yellow linen, I'd probably need to go about 40 layers thick because it is so thin if I'm going to do that on a fixed blade knife. A little too much. If you over pour it, that's okay. I mean, other than you might run out. It's not going to hurt anything because you're going to squeeze all the excess out of this when you're done pouring. You can see here with the excess, we're going to try and use it up on that piece of linen. If there's some holes in the material that you use, that's okay. Flea markets or yard sales where you can pick up a pair of blue jeans for $1. Doesn't matter if there's holes, the resin will fill them in. But if there's stains or discoloration, that'll show in your material when you're done. Some other materials that I've tried is felt. Worked very well, didn't particularly like it though. It uses about twice as much resin because it's so absorbent. And then it just looks like a piece of plastic when you're done. You can't see any grain detail in the handle when you're sanding. You can use any colors you want, any materials you want. Sometimes you'll be surprised at how it looks or how it doesn't look. See, this is starting to set up on me already. I got a little clump on that pour. Almost done. I think I can get it finished. And that's with half the amount of hardener that's supposed to be in there. Starting to clump up. Just 3 more pieces and we'll be done. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but these little clumps that show up in it, that's where the resin's starting to set up. And that's with half the hardener. If I'd used the total amount, I wouldn't have even got halfway through this pile. Okay, I've got the resin all worked in. Now I want to get it ready to clamp it up. Fold the wax paper over. And the wax paper is just so you can remove it. Try and straighten up the pile if it's a little crooked. And just put it on here. Like that. The second board goes on there. And again, I use 4 clamps. I'm just going to get them close. Once you start squeezing, that resin will start pouring out. I'm going to take off my gloves so I don't get resin all over the clamps that I'm using. After you clamp them up, I make them as tight as I can without splitting the boards. You can use those quick press clamps. I've found that I cannot get those as tight as I can these, so I prefer the C-clamps. I can just get a better squeeze with it, and then it gets the air bubbles out and looks a little bit better when you're done. Alright, I'm going to continue clamping this up over at a stump that I've got so that I don't mind all the resin pouring out. I'll be right back. Alright, this is where I finish clamping it up and let it sit for several hours after I clamp it. And then I let it sit a minimum of 24 hours before I use it. Try and keep the clamps pressing at level so that you don't get one side of your piece of micarta thicker than the other, unless you're going for that sort of thing. Just keep alternating and tightening them. And when I can hear the wood starting to split, that means it's tight enough.